This is it. I think we're live.
Oh, we're live. Okay.
That's it. Oh, yeah. You didn't see the countdown.
I can't see the countdown.
Oh, there you go. Well, look at this.
Good morning. Yeah. I mean, my watch is a little slow this morning. I don't know why. I think it's the battery and the Timex that slows down, honestly. You need to get an Apple Watch. Like
Should we explain to people what we're doing here?
If those that have are binging our webinars, notice that we're in a little bit of a different space today.
We're fancy today.
We've gotten fancy today. You know, I think part of it is the popularity of the topic and of the subject. And we figured, hey, look, given the importance of what we're talking about, 100%. let's up our game a little bit in the production quality a little bit.
Absolutely. So, we're gonna give some people some time to
give
dial
folks
in.
a little bit of time to get logged in.
Right.
We'd love to know where folks are coming from. Put it in the chat as always. It's we're down here in Los Angeles area, 10:30 in our neck of the woods. So maybe
afternoons for some
if you're like us, you're having coffee. Maybe you're having just after lunch. Yeah, in the middle of lunch. Who knows?
Charlotte, North Carolina, Houston. Okay, this is good. All right, how much more time do you want to give them before we dive right in?
I think let's dive in.
Word of warning, we've done this before, and we do tend to run long with the questions. So you know, it said 30 minutes, but I can't guarantee anything.
Yeah. We'll in 30 minutes, and we'll probably go a little bit over if we have questions. We want to give everyone here the time to ask the questions they have. Look, thank you so much, everyone, for joining today. We're thrilled to be here. A really exciting opportunity, topic to talk about today. Just a kind of a few housekeeping notes here. We're going to kind of keep this as an open conversation. We have a few slides we're going to run through for sure. We're using a platform called Livestorm. You can throw in your questions, throw in your comments through there. We'll take those either as they come or at the end, so don't feel shy. At the end, we're going to talk a lot about today about AI, GPT automation. These are technologies that, you know, in the last kind of 3 or 4 months have become really popular.
It's like tech bingo, like all these terms.
Right. You know, this is something we've been focused on. Briq, we're a 5-year-old company from the very beginning. So we're really glad to see these really hit prime time.
And what we want to goal is to demystify these terms and take maybe some of the BS out of it and say, what is the practical, like, is this, A, is it real? B, is it already in market? C, is there a practical application for these technologies, which we obviously believe there is, in construction?
Yes.
That's the goal.
Yeah. And at the end today, we are going to show something we've been working on. I think that's going to blow some socks off.
Sure.
That applies all 3 of these things that could be applied in your business today. So before we jump into the topic, Bassem, maybe give us, for those that are new to Briq and new to you, give us a little of your background and your experience in the industry.
So 24 years in construction tech, Ellis, 24 years. Started at a construction accounting software company in Toronto, Canada. And really, it's funny because I think back to those days and we go back to these moments where, you know, I would walk into a construction office and sometimes I feel like I'm still having the same conversations I had in 1999. And it was really, I got lucky, really did get lucky. There wasn't much of a plan. I thought construction sound cool, software sounds cool, let's go. Ended up spending a decade and a half of that company and then getting recruited for a company called Procore out of this nice little town called Carpinteria, where I actually still reside. It's a cute beach town. And there was a great ride at Procore, and then ultimately started Briq. The idea, the thesis behind Briq was ultimately we needed to create a game-changing digital transformation technology that would upend the world. We had all said, this is the way we've always done it. You know, there's always that person in that room. This is the way we've always done it. This is the way we are going to do it, to transforming that to, this is something that can change us. And we'll talk about why that is, but in a nutshell, that's my history.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, on Briq, we think about these technologies and how they're going to impact what we kind of call the future of work.
Yes.
Talk through, you know, a little bit about Briq. There's might be some folks that are completely new to what we do, but really more importantly of this idea of, you know, what is construction going to look like with these technologies in 5-10 years? You
know, Ellis, we always say there's 300,000 open recs in construction right now.
Yeah.
There are not enough humans in construction to do the work that we needed to get done. Backlogs are at an all-time high.
Right. And those aren't just in the field, by the way. Those are in the back office too.
Back office, front office. And the reality is that, you know, regardless of what the kind of doom scrolling you could read on the Wall Street Journal, the economy is hot. The economy's hot.
Yeah.
It's getting a little less hot, but it's still hot.
Yeah.
Hopefully inflation comes down. They stop.
In the long term, Warren
rates.
Buffett says never bet against the American economy, right?
Yeah, even if it is 12 to 24 months, a little bit of a slowdown, we're not going to feel it as much in construction because of our backlog.
Right.
But the reality is we're recruiting, I say 24 years. I'm aging out of this industry, right? I'm getting old. And, a lot of folks on this call are going to be getting old. And you're bringing in a next generation of workers that don't expect to press Shift F7, Control C, Control V 20,000 times a day to get their job done.
Right.
And, when you walk into a construction company, pre-Briq, we talk a lot about this, we have all the software, but in reality, the business is generally ran on Excel.
Yes.
And that cannot be the future of work. The other side of this is, and these great technologies that we're going to talk about, and like we'll go into an explanation of each of them. But the idea here is you need a co-pilot, you need an assistant, you need that concept of a machine helping you run your business. And I know this sounds like science fiction, and Briq was ahead of its time. I mean, let's be honest. We did this 5 years ago. We started doing this 5 years ago, and everybody kind of, I know that there's a lot of chuckles and laughs and like, how are you ever going to get a machine to do my work?
Right.
But 300 clients later, that's where we're at. And you're seeing this really transform how people do business. The future of work is not the way it is today. That is the only thought process you need to remove from this conversation. There is a future. It is changing today. It's not changing tomorrow, next week. It is changing today. If you are being left on the sidelines on thinking about your workflows and how to make them better, you're going to be challenged as a company. I'm just telling you.
Yeah. And we're going to talk through some of the specifics of those workflows today. Let's maybe though spend a little up top talking about these AI technologies.
Yes.
So we think about AI, if you were to Google AI today, it's a big umbrella term, right? There's like 100 artificial general intelligence and deep learning.
There's a lot of things to talk about.
Right.
So let's talk about just the basic explanation of what AI is.
Yes.
So a basic explanation of artificial intelligence is it starts with something called machine learning. And machine learning, the dirty secret about AI is that there are so many humans involved in AI right now because machines are being taught. Just think of it like a kid going to grammar school. A human will score things and explain things to this little computer program that over time remembers it and then can operate more and more like a human doing the work on behalf of a human. Intelligence is a little bit of far-flung concept right now, to be quite frank. It is artificial intelligence, but essentially, in a nutshell, in one sentence, if you're at a party and say, "Oh, what is AI?" It's the ability for a machine to retain the knowledge taught by a human to do a task that is more or less repetitive and somewhat human intensive or work intensive right now. So if that's just AI, it's just you're teaching a machine to do the work like you. And if I was to give you a great example, if I wanted to teach a machine, what projects are great for my company, I might feed in that algorithm, that machine, dozens and dozens, hundreds, thousands of projects that I've won in the past, their descriptions, and perhaps use some sort of natural language processing to say, hey, that next description sounds kind of like a project that you've done well at in the past. So those are the thought processes. So that's AI in a nutshell. Machines taught by humans to do the work of an average, person. Where generative comes into play is actually a huge step forward. Generative means that instead of it just spitting out probabilities or spitting out statistics or math equations, it's actually using its past knowledge to create something new. And that's where things get very exciting. We're going to talk about our use of generative, but that's where things are getting very exciting, Alice. And like, if you think about what has happened with generative technology right now,
right?
Everybody's seen ChatGPT. Essentially what that is doing is taking that machine learning, that nugget that they've been taught, and then paraphrasing in a response that is totally unique, totally different than ever created before. That's what A, is somewhat scary to folks, but B, really, really cool. The last linchpin in this entire discussion is automation. That's really where Briq comes in, and it ties all together. AI is the brain. Generative is the brain. The body is automation. The hands, the fingers, the digits. Automation in those three pillars that we're talking about, intelligence and machine learning, generative technologies, and automation. All three of those things together changes how you do business. And that's what we're going to talk about today. It changes how your companies run. And what automation is, it ties in those, machine learning thoughts, and will do a task on behalf of a human, almost like a human is doing it, in order to get the job done. And when we talk about automation, I always go back to The Adaptation Advantage, one of my favorite books.
Great book.
And I think we send a lot of those out in direct mails. But the idea here is that there's 3 A's when it comes to this concept of automation. Atomization, taking these big, gnarly workflows. You can't, I go to construction companies, they can barely write the workflows on the board, right? So, there's not a one line. There's not enough whiteboards in our office to explain how, a change order goes from initiation to closeout. So take those big, gnarly workflows, chunk them out, atomize them, break them down to easier things, and then automate the portions that a machine can do better than a human. Repetitive tasks, things that, you don't want to have to think about anymore, all that, generating an Excel spreadsheet, doing calculations, pulling data in and out, all of that. Take that all away and then just leave yourself with knowledge work. And that knowledge work, that concept of the knowledge work, is the augmentation of the experience for a human. The augmentation of the experience, meaning get the person the right information at the right time to do the right thing. Atomize, break down these workflows. That's what we're going to talk about today. Automate what can be automated, augment what needs to be augmented. In order to do that successfully, you need the machine learning intelligence. You need the ability for the machine to think and generate. And then finally, you need the ability to automate.
Yeah, 100%. So let's talk about how this gets applied, right? And these
all sound like big words.
These all sound like how does this actually work? Well, let's talk. This is kind of a new category in the software world. And Amanda, if you would for us, pull up. It can be kind of hard to see in this video. Pull up this slide for us, if you will, for everyone on live storm here.
Yeah, awesome. I'll have to come up.
Yeah. So let's talk about what type of technology, what kind of software is going to actually apply these tools.
Yeah, it's different. It's a new thing. It's hard to just wake up one morning and say, hey, I'm going to
have generative AI and I'm going to do all these things. Yeah, right.
Software companies are good at something and not good at other things, right? So we're not a good document management tool. We're not a document management tool, right? We're not those things. We're not a design tool. And I talk about this as kind of the generational shift in construction. We talk about this a lot, Ellis.
Yeah.
It's, in the 90s, there was a digital transformation that happened with Autodesk coming along and taking something that was on a drawing board, on a handwritten drawing, and digitizing that and putting in 2D, eventually 3D designs. We still ship drawings though. We still sent files, right? It was very siloed. Even if you think back to the Autodesk days, those that are old enough to remember, they had the little key for every PC to it was siloed. It was very siloed.
Maybe you networked them together.
Yes, but it was challenged, right?
Yeah.
And it was networking was an extra fee or whatever. It was silo technology. The second wave I got to be a part of, PlanGrid started, Procore started, the idea of collaborative software. In both cases, in collaborative software, everybody logged into one place and they did the work in one place.
It was essentially going from on-prem to cloud.
Exactly. You still did the same amount of work though.
Right.
Whether it's a Post-it note or typing into a machine, it's easier to collaborate, but you kind of suck it up and just type it into a machine in the cloud.
Right. And it was kind of if you look at that first generation, it was digitization was kind of the driver of this.
Right.
That second generation was, the internet really powered this.
Yes.
The third generation is powered by AI.
Yes, that is correct. Yeah. And I think you say it best. I don't want to steal your line, but it's the first technology that's being taught to use other technologies.
Right.
And I think that's where we say, okay, let's take a pause there and really think about this. It's the first technology where we are saying, wow, this will eliminate the workload. It's not that we're taking you from a Post-it note to a comment on a digitized drawing. We're eliminating entire steps within the workflow. And I think that's the big step.
Yeah. It's software built for a one individual user, software built for teams, software built to use software, right? So that's kind of how you will see this applied. Current state.
Yeah,
project workflows.
Everybody's seen this probably if they've ever seen one of our demos or presentations. This is no joke. Like we bought a bunch of software in the 90s, 2000s, 2010s, now the 20s, a bunch of software, man. There is a lot of apps out there. And then they're loosely connected, loosely coupled, broke a bunch of workflows because everybody got re-siloed. Right. And then we're trying to glue it all back together with Excel, Microsoft Access, SharePoint, Dropbox, APIs, custom development, you name it. I'll change the names to protect the guilty, but there's in our top 10 company that has 300 engineers, like computer programmers. Like, I don't know. I don't think that's a good use of resources, right? But they're trying to write all their own stuff just to connect all this spaghetti work they have. What we see with Briq, and we go to the next slide.
Well, I know one thing on this I will say is like the reason that, and this is kind of what it looks like after two generations of software, right? True. I mean, it's not because anyone did anything wrong. Yeah, no, right. Sure. This is just, after you've invested in, digitizing paper, you've invested in collaborative software. This is what it looks like. Yep. So how do you clean this up? Let's to the next slide.
I'm gonna use my Andy Reid line.
Yes.
You didn't show up at the Super Bowl and said to the players, "Hey, just do whatever you want." Mm-hmm. You need a playbook. And so if you think about it, the most basic concept, forget about all these fancy terms, GPT, AI, automation. At the most basic concept is you need a playbook. You need an orchestration tool. You need something that runs these very gnarly workflows that are multi-departmental and multi-person. That means estimators are involved, ops folks, PMs, superintendents, accountants, CFOs, presidents, owners. They're all involved in these multi-departmental processes. Forget about collaborating with your client, collaborate inside your department.
Right.
And so that's where we clean it up at home first. And that's your playbook. Briq becomes a playbook. What does Briq look like? Everybody wants to know. All that technology is it's like the duck under the water, right? It's all simmering below. It looks like Excel and a flow chart.
Yeah.
Right. And you're just running a bunch of plays.
Right. 100%. And this doesn't mean, hey, we're replacing all of the technology that we've invested in. It doesn't mean, and also doesn't mean that you can, switch accounting systems and solve this problem, right? Solve the crazy mess problem.
I mean,
right?
if you think about it, it's like, what do they say in that Baz Luhrmann song? It's like chewing bubblegum to solve a financial equation. I mean, you've had accounting softwares for 20 years.
Right.
It hasn't solved the problem. You have project management software for 20 years. You just can't just show up one day and go, I'm going to make you more efficient, more productive. I'm going to cut out a huge swath of the extra steps you have to do, but you still have to do a bunch of extra steps.
Right.
It's just not possible.
Yeah. It doesn't make sense. No. Extra steps. So if everyone can see on the live stream here, these workflows, right? These 5 workflows.
Yeah. And Amanda, we can go back to the live feed, our feed.
Yeah. And if everyone does 5 workflows really well, and they go through this exercise of, atomizing, automating, and augmenting, what are we looking at here? What's the outcome of that?
I think the outcome, I look at this as a pyramid. Right. I look at it as a pyramid. Baseline of that pyramid, just think of it like an arrow or a pyramid. The baseline of that, it really goes in my shirt by the pyramid. She bought this in Egypt. So the baseline of that period is saving hours. Okay. It's very quantifiable, 1,000 to 5,000 person hours a year saved on average for our clients, read case studies, what have you. It means that you have more time to do other things, to do knowledge work, to think about other stuff that we're doing. Yeah. Then you go into the next layer in that point, and it's essentially planning a better business. If I have more time, I can better plan outcomes, better help predict outcomes, maybe avoid the pothole before you hit it, right? The final tip of that spear is stopping fee erosion. And, everybody knows the term fee erosion, profit erosion. The concept is there's an apex point where you said you were going to make $1 million. You made 800 grand. Where did that happen? And how could I have stopped that? The baseline's easy to calculate. 1 to 2 headcount. You don't have to hire from COVID, what have you. The second one's a little harder. What does it mean to plan a better business when you can avoid a pothole? That tip of the spear, stopping free erosion, makes this type of technology result in an unlimited ROI. Yeah. And we're going to talk about those in these workflows.
Yeah. Okay. So let's go through the workflows. We're going to talk through these 5 workflows, how you can apply AI, how you can apply AI, how you can improve them. And at the end, we're going to demonstrate some
Something
technology
very
we
cool,
built with one of these.
That's part of our
project initiation. Let's start at the beginning.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, this is a fun one because everybody's like, set up a project. But when you walk into an office, and I challenge anybody to do this and bring in your controller or your accountant, bring in a project manager, bring in an estimator, and bring in the president, and sit in front of the room and say, when does a project start at our company? Like, when does it start?
Right.
And the estimator is going to say one thing, the accountant's going to say another thing, the project manager is going to say another thing. They're just going to all say different things.
Yeah.
And that is true because they are all right. They are all 100% accurate. The estimator,
that's very confusing.
Yes, your president went on a golf course, met a person that wants to build something. It becomes a thought. He emails an assistant who puts it into a CRM system. The estimator eventually picks up that job, types it into an estimating system, does their work, their magic, their alchemy. Then you get a pre-construction award, let's say. Then you go in and a PM is assigned to it. Can't be assigned to a PM without a project in their PM system. So they go enter it in their PM system. And then, oh my God, we have to bill something, or we got costs. We have to put in a timesheet. So all of a sudden now there's a job that has to be set up in accounting in your time tracking tool 5, 6, 7 times. Think about that. I'm not telling anybody, the hundreds of people that are on this call, like anything you guys don't know.
Right.
That is exactly what it's like.
Yeah.
And that orchestration I'm talking about, it sounds silly to start a project initiation, but let's talk about the cost of people entering in multiple data points, delays in billings because there's no accounting job, inaccurate revenue recognition because, we'll talk about the next one, but budgets aren't in there because the job is barely in there.
Yeah.
How do you tie it all back together at the end? Marketing is now going to ask you, where is my data for this project? Like, how many change orders were there? How many square feet? All of that. Well, there's 6 different versions of the truth. The reality is, though, you can't say to an estimator, oh, you don't need to use estimating systems anymore. You have to use the tool for the job. They need an estimating system. They need to estimate. They need a project management system. The orchestration is what I'm talking about here. And, we have clients that have done something very, very simple, which is either connect their CRM system or, using our user interface, creating a form that they can put in some project data, and it cascades everywhere.
Wow.
It's all the same number. There's no more guesswork.
Right.
And then, remember, we use that crazy AI term.
Right.
It then uses that knowledge of the job number to start watching as things change. So something goes from pending to pre-construction award to award, different workflows are triggering.
Yes.
That's the key.
Yeah. And it's not, you're going to hear this theme. This is not a connection. This is not an API into a database. This is teaching a bot how to act on behalf of a human and go and set up these jobs and make amendments in the systems. That's
the key. We rarely use APIs, actually, to be quite frank. The idea here is this technology that Briq invented, we're not the only ones doing it, we're the only ones doing construction, actually uses little computer programs to navigate the front end of a machine like a human would. Logs into Sage, types in data, pulls out data, just like a human would do that. So that's like the key concept here. The idea here is that a machine is doing the work of a human. Now, I think we have our first poll that we can throw up there. And
let's do that.
I think it's actually kind of a powerful poll when we really think about it, is, where are we in this world? And I'll let Amanda catch up here. But how much time is really being spent on these non-productive, repetitive tasks? And I think once that poll gets up there, we'll give her a couple seconds. That's where, and there it is, of your current workflows, I'll just read it off the screen, how much time is spent on repetitive work that a machine could probably do? Oh, cool. She's doing both votes. We'll talk about the second poll in just a sec, but how much work is actually doing that could be just replaced?
Yeah. Another one that comes up all the time, same kind of world in the beginning, estimate to budget.
This is a hand-in-hand workflow. Like the idea that the project gets initiated, that's one thing. That's a very basic thing to understand, right? You're in a room, the project's not in accounting, it's in project management, work is being done. If any work is being done, why isn't it getting billed? How am I not allocating costs, what have you? Well, where's the budget? And this is a very, very difficult workflow because estimators, this is where APIs break. This is where the concept of a connector breaks. When you think about it, estimates are done at a different level of detail than budgets are done. And therefore, this is not an integration problem. It's not that just construction's silly and it took 50 years to figure out that this is a problem. It's always been a problem.
Yes. Mapping
cost codes to estimate line items is not just hard. It's an art in some cases.
100%.
So, when Briq talks about this, we're taking the estimate out of the estimating system and looking at past history to suggest cost codes that are accurate for this, eliminating at the beginning 60 to 70% of the work that you might have been doing manually. As the machine learns more and more, it gets to 80, 90% accurate. There always will be a human in the loop, but just think about that moment where, you're going in, you're pulling this estimate out, you're rebuilding a cost structure, and you can in Spectrum or Viewpoint or CMIC or Sage see that cost structure in real time. And in project management systems like Procore, PlanGrid or the Autodesk Build product, you can see those budgets there as well. And no human had to touch it, and they're all equal.
Yeah.
That's the shocker, right? It's all the same number.
Yeah. And every PM might build their budget a little bit differently based on the job. And part of this is, can I get a technology that's kind of personalized to how my team thinks?
Yes.
You don't want to eliminate that critical thinking from your team. In fact, that's the most important asset you have is
the critical thinking.
Is critical thinking of what my people do and how they build a budget.
You only have 8 hours, probably, if you work at Briq, 12, but working hours a day.
Yeah.
But how much of this next poll question, how much of your day is spent on critical thinking versus doing busy work?
Right.
I mean, this goes hand in hand. And if you think about estimated budget, one great line from a controller, she said, I put on my headphones and I turn off my brain and I go away for 6 hours. That's and that's a really scary thing, because that 6 hours you don't get back. You need to be better as a company. You don't need people doing what a machine could probably do anyway. And that's when we talk about this fancy term, the future of work. The future of work, AI, generative automation makes your job more human. An estimator does not want to sit there mapping cost codes. And yes, 80% of it could be done by a machine. The 20% is critical thinking. Is this should go in general requirements, should go in general conditions, should site work be self-performed? Where does that sit on the chart? Where does it sit on the owner's schedule of values, etc.? But that work cannot be continued to be done by humans that just turn off their brain. We need their brains on, not off.
Right.
And your brain turns off on repetitive tasks.
Yeah, 100%. Okay, so project initiation, estimate to budget, two good workflows where you can apply automation. You can apply these bots that learn how you set up a job, learn how you build a budget. Let's talk about one that's a bit more complex, a little hard to do, more on the financial side, project forecasting and the revenue rec.
I mean, this is really, this is the workflow that built Briq, right? Project forecasting to WIP. It's an automation and it's an augmentation of the human experience. Pre-Briq, a CFO is going to log into their accounting system and download reams and reams of data once a month. They'll go in there and they'll say, let's get it in. And there's massive macro-based Excel spreadsheet. They're going to cut and paste the recent transactions, and then different tabs come up for each project, and they forget to project, so they have to add a tab. And then they cut and paste data into individualized project-based Excel spreadsheets that are then emailed out or downloaded into a PM system in some way, so that a project manager may or may not go in and enter data that is basically inaccurate by the time they get there anyway. Budgets change orders change. And ultimately, they send the Excel spreadsheets back in, or they try to take a snapshot in their PM system, or they're forced to use Citrix to log into an archaic accounting system to put in forecasts that they hate doing. And then they just plug the numbers, because project managers don't like working for accounting. They're not putting a lot of critical thought into it. They plug the numbers in, they click submit, or they send back the email. And then that poor CFO is left trying to build a puzzle back together without the picture on the box, right? You're trying to glue all this data back in. Nightmare. 60 days on average, 90 days on average for a company pre-Briq to get to month-end closeout. That's insane in an industry where we have razor-thin margins, where mistakes happen every day, and we're not manufacturing, build the one project once. We could still get rained out like baseball. Like it's but we're not even worrying about that. We're not worrying about overtime rate changes because we just don't have time. And then in some cases, we'll talk to a company where they're like, we're doing it quarterly. So you're forecasting your work quarterly? Well, we don't have time to do this. So what Briq does in this particular instance for the project forecast, this uses a lot of that front end that looks like Excel. It auto-generates, and this is a form of generative. It takes what your templates look like today, learns your templates, and there's a lot of humans in that loop. Briq is machine learning, teaching it to generate a workbook as if the CFO had done it, and distribute that workbook directly to project managers in real time with real-time refresh data as the feeds continue to work in from accounting. That's a huge, huge change. All of a sudden, you're not fighting in your monthly cost meetings. You're actually talking about problems. Because what clouds real problems is arguments over what data is accurate or whose data is right.
Right. And that's the other thing, you know, the difference between, you might have a WIP dashboard or a project dashboard. Like analytics is not an AI necessarily. Right. It's just taking data.
Report.
It's a report. Yeah. Because the data can always be wrong. And that's the beauty of automation is, you know, automating these workflows is the key to clean data. We hear all the time, like garbage in, garbage out.
Right.
Well, the key to cleaning up that garbage is automating. In fact, removing the human touch as much as possible from that data point.
And I actually call this, and we did a private showing of this one, and I call this like the waste, you know, this is the waste treatment plan of your company.
Right, yes.
Project forecasting to WIP is literally where all the stuff goes down to get cleaned and
this is a construction podcast. We can
it's like that. It's the project forecasting to WIP is your waste treatment plan. Right. If your budgets are wrong, if your forecasts aren't in, if your margin is wrong, it ain't good.
Right.
And that is where, you know, everybody gets lost. And why did I lose fee? Why did I stop? Where did my fee get eroded? Well, it got eroded because we didn't have this workflow automated by machine.
Yeah. And so what this is doing is pulling in, you might, data on the project side, maybe change orders, budgets from Procore, pulling in stuff from the accounting system, maybe things that have typically lived offline, automating the creation of that file. Basically for you, and allowing project managers to interact with it in a way that we're not logging the accounting system, logging into the project management system, right? It's giving them a better interface to, you know, be financial experts.
And most importantly about AI is personalized to your business.
Yes.
It is not a playing field that a product manager has decided that you have a bunch of calculations that the product manager in some, you know, ivory tower said, this is the way you should do a calculation. It's personalized to you.
Yeah, 100%.
As promised, we went over. Let's
Did we go over? Okay. Another one, revenue cash flow forecasting.
Yeah. This is make or break right now, to be honest with you. We have to be on top of our revenue forecast, especially with interest rates going where they are. Revenue forecast generally done once a quarter in most pre-Briq clients, ultimately taking opportunities and spreading them out over time. This is the part of AI that I'm most excited about, beyond everything in automation and generative. The concept of generative financial data that is spread over time based on past outcomes, that's really cool. And having that algorithm learn more and more and augment itself to say, you know, generally we spend X amount of hours on general conditions per month based on this type of project. This is your anomaly detection. This is your cash flow is the same way. Where did we get paid? We bill on the 30th of the month. We get paid generally 45 days later, building that in an automated way so you can see cash flow. And then having those algorithms trigger, you know what, this owner is a quick payer. This owner is a slow payer. This owner is going to stretch you 75 days. This owner is going to do you in 40. And getting this intelligent cash flow and revenue workflow engine for your company. So the idea of, you know, we talk about this AI, what is AI doing? It's machines being taught by humans or by data sets to learn like a human would and get better at a task. That's what all it is. Using all of your accounting data, all of your operational data and saying, in general, this is where you land. And, you know, for 5 years, we built some pretty great algorithms. We call it time travel, going backwards and forwards. It's, you know, what I say it every time. It's like, know about your yesterdays in a lot crystal clear moment, understand your todays extremely clear, and then at some point understand your tomorrows a lot clearer than you do today. And it's not an 8-ball, like it's not a magic 8-ball. It's not going to just guess,
right? But
it's a step forward on predictive analytics, which is the holy grail.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, part of this is where there's anytime you have to collect data points from a lot of different people.
Yeah.
I mean, cash flow, great example of that. Even this is going to lead us into spending and billings.
Right.
Orchestrating all of that work in the back end, that is a process administered by humans.
Yeah.
It's almost not worth the juice ain't worth the squeeze.
Yeah, exactly.
Because there's just too much work to get the pieces together.
And generally the data is not trusted by anybody.
100%. Right. So let's talk about another great workflow, actually, where these technologies are applied a lot today.
Right.
Spending and billing.
Yeah, so this is probably the one that most people are familiar with, which is the concept of a computer reading an invoice.
Yeah.
A computer reading your credit card statement.
Yeah.
Now, what's different about this technology now is that it's not just reading it, it's suggesting and learning behind the scenes what projects do this person normally assign to, suggesting projects, highlighting anomalies. What cost codes should this go against? Highlighting an anomaly that cost code is either out of budget or doesn't exist on the job. So the idea here is that spend management, the concept that you swipe a credit card on average in a construction company today, 6 to 8 weeks before a credit card swipe shows up on a project ledger, down to 5 minutes, because it's suggesting what project and where on the cost code structure. Now, maybe it's not fully posted, but it's there as an unposted cost in both accounting, in your forecasts in Briq, in your project management system. So there are no surprises. This is where a lot of folks, Ellis, start, because it's very easy to understand. You have this machine reading invoices and credit card statements and credit card swipes and reimbursements, recommending things like fraud alerts, saying, wait a minute, this seems a little off, seeing AP invoices that might multi-charges on it, unmatched quantities, undelivered quantities, going in there and like actually recommending things and learning which vendors are red flags, which vendors aren't. That is where a lot of folks need to start, because it's such low-hanging fruit and it's pretty much plug and play. The other side of billings is it's a much more difficult conversation. When we talk about billings, we're not like, Briq isn't coming in to replace Textura or, GC Pay. It's not about that. What it's about is orchestrating that playbook from your accounting system. Briq has an alternative for you to do internal job billing within your company in its own user interface. And then having that push to Textura if your owner or general contractor is mandating it, having that push into your accounting system, understanding from contract to collections how that orchestration works is as important as the spend management. I do see it though, Ellis, is like a second gen in most of these companies.
Yeah.
Most folks just focus on the spend side, but billing cannot be forgotten. That is a gnarly workflow. Bill codes change, contracts change.
Yeah.
G702, G703 standards. There are, what do they say? The great thing about standards is there's so many versions of the standard.
Right.
So it's ultimately just.
But one of the things, and this is also the spend side ties with the project forecasting side too. If you can set your PMs up to bill when they're supposed to be billing.
Yes.
Because they've seen the invoice and they know it's time to bill for it. That's a great thing too. Like one of our clients, Dynamic Systems, talks about this workflow. He goes, hey, we automated 8,000 invoices a month through Briq. Right. We had 2 AP clerks doing that whole thing.
Yeah.
And not only were we able to kind of grow, I think they went from, 250, 300 million to 500 million with only 2 AP clerks.
Yeah.
But now those invoices are getting posted to job costs faster.
Yep.
The project forecasts are more accurate.
Yep.
Their PMs are now billing for that work. Yep. The cash flow is improving.
Yes.
So these things build on top of each other.
100%.
And so, automating at least one of these 5 workflows has downstream effects.
That's that triangle. That's that ROI.
Triangle, right.
Yeah. Save time. So you only had 2 people doing it.
Right.
Plan a better business. So you know your cash flow more clearly. Yeah. And then, by the way, having those costs show up faster stops fee erosion, because I don't know about you, but clients tend to not pay once the job closes out. If the job closes in 6 to 8, within that 6 to 8 week period,
you're getting 60% of that. Yeah.
That money's written off.
Right.
Let's start off the last poll.
Let's do the last poll. How are the results the first 2?
Pretty good. Pretty solid. This one is just a wow. In a typical workday, how much time is allotted to pure knowledge work versus collecting information? Over half of you said 20% of their day, only 20%. That's insane.
That's insane. So 80% of the time is spent
collecting data.
Yeah. Well, one of our clients. So she calls it they're not hunter gatherers.
Yeah.
Get out of hunter gatherer mode.
So 50 to 75% 54% of us say at least 50% of the work that I do could be done by a machine because it's so repetitive.
Right. And let's be clear on this, by the way, like we're not replacing, you said at the beginning of this, like 300,000 open jobs right now, right? I spoke to this controller in the Midwest last week, and she's like, I cannot hire a AP clerk.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about replacing AP clerks. I'm like, I cannot get somebody in seat.
Yeah. You can't get somebody in seat, and you can't, the pay is ridiculous.
Yeah.
And it's all over it.
Yeah.
Number one, workflow, revenue and cash flow forecasting that they want to automate.
Oh, interesting.
Spend management's close second, very close second. And then project forecasting to WIP.
Yeah.
Then project initiation. Funny, estimate to budget. There's probably not a lot of estimators on the estimates to budget.
Or PMs,
dead last. Yeah. Change order and document management. Interesting. All right.
Okay.
So this is let's talk before Amanda, you flip the switch on the video. So Briq has been doing a lot of early work. Oh, change order. Sorry. We should talk about
this leads you into
that's right
to the video. So
that's true. That's true. A lot of the workflows that we started talking about are very, very driven around anything with dollars in front of it, very basic concepts around contracts or billing such. It's very financially oriented, project forecasts, all dollar related. What we've seen in the last year, and quite frankly, in the last 3 months, is more and more people needing automations around change orders. And the idea that they have this change order, this RFI that becomes a change order, and it's still sitting in the ether. And it's like this holy grail, a proceeding change order without written authorization, impacting costs is your number one, tied with general conditions and self-performed work, number one source of fee erosion. So we were like, how do we make this better? So we have a lot of different clients doing this. Some of it's just as simple as getting proceeding change orders on the forecast faster, or highlighting ones that clearly, are impacting costs when they shouldn't be, or they're proceeding without written authorization, so to speak. But we invented a technology that is in early stages that uses our connections with the OpenAI group. Not many people know this. We were some of the earliest adopters of some of the algorithms used for the OpenAI project with our advisory council that started in 2019. And using that connection, and we're going to show you a video where essentially a text message becomes a fully articulated RFI based on RFIs that are better tracked, better responded to, and change orders that essentially are allocated based on what the machine may think is potentially a change order. The ultimate point here, though, is this is just in the experimental stage. But if you take a look at what we really think the future of work is, it takes a person from his machine heads down, or her machine heads down, into actually doing that knowledge work. And let's flip the video and let's take a look.
Yeah, Amanda, let's pop the video up if you don't mind.
And so there it is. It's coming in. Write me a change order. Write me an RFI. And then it's taking that text message and writing that text message into ChatGPT. We actually use the API. We're just using this as an example. But the idea here is it went in and it's writing this fully articulated RFI. And this is not a human doing this. This is a machine.
A bot, a machine.
A machine, a little computer program, a little bit of intelligence that learned how to enter data into Procore, and it's putting in the from, the to, the standard stuff, but it's also building out and monitoring this RFI. What's really great about this is because these start to get tagged by Briq, as you see these RFIs grow into change orders, it learns more and more to predict which RFIs are going to produce a change.
And it would exact 100%, what's the likelihood of this RFI leading to a change order? And then something as simple as, hey, does the machine know what project to assign this RFI to? Well, you have the project manager maybe doing this in the field.
Yep.
Well, the machine knows that project manager is assigned to that project. Right. So it's all connected in that sense.
Right.
The other thing is this is eliminating all, you're not replacing any of your project management systems, accounting systems. Yep. All the project managers do is interacting with that SMS text message.
Yeah, 100%. And also what's really cool about this in generative, we sold a very large project. We usually sell businesses, but we sold a very large project to a very large owner that is this massive project offshore that has 3 or 4 different systems: Newforma, eBuilder, 2 versions of Procore, because it's a joint venture and a lot of things going on. And everybody gets to now live in their sandbox, in their world, and everything's being coordinated by Briq across all 4 systems. And nobody has been able to do that ever. And the next generation of this, the next round of it, is translating into an owner that doesn't speak English, that's non-English. So that's true use of bots that are running the business for you, so you don't have to worry about it. You do the knowledge work. You do the knowledge work.
Yeah, and in this case, we're seeing it's combining, generative by expanding on that initial text, and it's using automation to actually create the RFI record in Procore. Predictive would be another layer here of saying like, hey, this change order has a high likelihood of, leading to a change order. This RFI has a high likelihood of change order.
I always say, like, for just what your takeaway is, predictive is the third phase. Like it takes a while for the machine to learn. One of our best clients, you can read the case study online, does use our predictive curves to compare what Briq says the project should cost next month versus what the PM says versus what is actually happening. And so I think that what I call very early on, early warning systems, anomaly detection, that's where I think predictive is right now.
And one of these, and like, if you really want to get, as folks think through their questions, do we have any questions in the hopper yet? But as we think through some of those, I mean, like, let's paint a picture of, like, let's get really crazy, 5 to 10 years, what it could look like. Every company has its own GPT library, right? So if you ask Chat GPT today, hey, which of my change orders are going, which of my RFIs are leading to a change order, you're not going to get that answer. By the way, Chat GPT spent $100 million training that algorithm. Expensive. The cost of that's going to come down over time.
100%.
And we see what we see what's going to happen is each company has their own GPT. Where they can ask these types of questions. Not only ask questions, but give commands to perform tasks.
100%.
It's a completely new world. It's extremely exciting. Companies have to be thinking about this today.
Yes. You cannot keep on throwing mud at the wall and hoping that it sticks so that you can get faster. So we do have some questions. Do I have to use Procore? No, absolutely not. We implement with all major construction accounting, even minor construction accounting systems that, range in age from 35 years old to 5 years old, right? So most connections.
I had no idea there's so many PM systems out there, by the way. There's a lot. We've seen some obscure
people are still using Prolog, which is
100%
older than you, I think.
Oh, yeah.
How do I join the advisory council? I love that. This is from Dawn. Dawn, if you reach out to Mia at briq.com, MIA at briq.com, Mia's runs our customer marketing group, and she'll help you out there. Great question. How can AI help small businesses?
Great question.
It makes you a big business. That's like the only thing that you can't, I want that job. There's I think the case study's published. I won't say the company name. That I want those jobs. Is it great? The best thing about construction is it's all about relationships, right?
Yes.
So this gentleman came along, bought software from me at CMIC and then at Procore, and then bought Briq, and he's started his own business. He's an entrepreneur now. And he goes, I want those next jobs, but I don't have 1 million people working to create these bond reports, to look fancy, to create the right forecast. I have 3 project managers, me, and a bookkeeper that works 3 days a week. What do I do? This isn't just for big companies. Actually, quite frankly, big companies tend to see this as a science experiment and not use anything. They're like, oh, the innovation group
is gets stuck in this analysis paralysis.
And of course, the innovation group doesn't have the respective ops, so nobody's turning off project controls or project management or project forecasting. So small companies have the best opportunity, and I'm telling you, they will leapfrog big companies because they're going to do a lot more automated, a lot more augmented, have project managers take on more projects, look big, strong, and more productive, and get bigger jobs, and all of a sudden be $100, $250 million. This gentleman that I'm talking about, the entrepreneur, thanks Briq for all of their backlog because they had 2 jobs when they started. Their revenue forecast is now accurate, and they gave that to the bonding company. Bonding company goes, you guys got this going on. You know what you're doing. And, it looks like he has a, master CFO back there, but he doesn't.
Yeah.
That's
and we have a lot of big companies using this too.
100%.
I think where we've seen success with the larger companies that do have kind of more that, the hoops to jump through, they think internally like a small company. And whether you're a small company or a big company, don't put the AI on the pedestal. Right. Everyone, it's putting on a pedestal. Automate your invoices. Like, that's a very simple, it's like, it's not going to be as sexy and as you think, it's something, it's a simple workflow. Estimate to budget, setting up your automating your invoices, right? Automating the whip. Start with something that you can kind of bite off and chew.
Exactly.
Big company or a small company, is my advice.
Another great question is, Briq use AI for forecasting? So it does use AI to generate the workflow, or generate the workbooks that look like Excel but are cloud-based. It uses AI to do what we call time travel, which is the future state of this project. This is where if you read or you subscribe to our newsletter about AI construction and automation, you can find on LinkedIn. We talk about humans in the loop, and 2 editions ago, there is no world in construction where a project manager doesn't review a forecast.
Right.
I mean, like, don't worry, you're safe. There's not going to be a human like robot, like the Terminator, sitting around project sites and trying to do forecasts for you. I mean, there's the crazy ideas of taking photos and all. The point is that's where it comes in. It's augmentation, right? The human doesn't have to bail that spreadsheet, and the human can trust the data to do that. So it's the perfect marriage of man and machine, or person and machine, in order to get that forecast out. Okay, so Sam asks, is basically a bot that can be trained to use all of our different software. Yes, that in a nutshell is, whether it's he names a lot of software packages here, QuickBooks or Matterport. You have to have.
We see a lot of QuickBooks.
Yeah, you have to have the right use cases. So we talk through these plays, right? So think like an NFL coach. Write down the plays that are gnarliest for you. We recommended 5. They're not necessarily your plays. In those, the reason why we chose those 5 is they're the highest value multi-departmental one. When the baton drops, like we say, construction is not the best relay race. In relay team, when they try to pass from estimating to ops, that baton gets dropped a lot. But look at your own and then see what systems are involved, what humans are involved. We can help you do that. And then choose what workflows are the gnarliest. And then our machine can learn to use your software. Just think of the Briq technology. The outcomes. I love talking about outcomes. Better but run business. But if you need to nuts and bolts, and I see some IT folks on here, the Briq technology is like a new employee right out of college comes to your business, or she comes to your business, and you teach it to run the plays that you want it to run. Now, we have over 3,000 plays in Briq. You can use best business practices. You can use templates. You can use our thought process. But essentially, yes, you are training a machine. Sage 100 too, believe it or not, Sage 100.
Yeah.
Listen,
by the way, it's going
mind blowing.
The worse the system, the more we love it.
Yeah, exactly. Computer ease. Foundation. Foundation. This is, investors always asking is like, what's your competitive mode? And I was like, no business on the planet is going to go like log into the client server computer ease from like 2008. But it's there.
Yeah. No, really important. And by the way, like anywhere you haven't, like, it's a great point. Bringing in, it's like hiring technology instead of, you're basically hiring an employee that can do a lot of different things really well.
Hire technology for the job that it needs done. Does Briq look back at plans? We do have R&D projects that we are looking at right now. We're not doing any design augmentation. It's not really on the roadmap. We want it to focus on dollars. I think maybe, you don't know what the future holds, Ellis, but right now, anything with financial intelligence, financial AI, that's really where we want to focus. The RFI is the first time we've really kind of delved into, hey, can we take this text message, hey, this is what's wrong, 3 chicken scratches, and turn that in using a relationship with Microsoft, turn that into an RFI that gets typed into Procore. That's a really cool thing. It takes everybody off of their machine, makes things go faster. And then ultimate outcome, though, of that is understanding change orders and proceeding change orders. Right. So that's still a financial impact. Yeah. We have not done anything.
Yeah.
Really
same thing with safety. So we get that question a lot too. I mean, I think really it's anything that, hard related to dollars. And by the way, you'll see the best ROI on this technology.
And there are integrations, with other AI tools. Progress. That was another question that just came up. We integrate based on client demand and partnerships.
Yeah.
If anybody's here from another software company, our head of partnerships, Ryan Samir, he's available. We have dozens and dozens of new partnerships every month. If there's something that works with our technology, let's do it. We're the Switzerland. We are not. This is the exact opposite of where I started my career, which was called the power of one, which you had to buy all your software from us. No, we want to be an engine. We want to be this AI orchestration tool. We want to orchestrate plays for workflows to be better. We don't want to replace your PM system or your accounting system. Yeah. We work in harmony with them. And quite frankly, ERP systems don't have to be replaced as quickly when you use Briq, and that's another huge saving.
Right.
But we'll Christian asked that question. We will integrate with things based on customer demand.
100%. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, like, and we've seen customers go, oh, I can either, I've got Sage 300. I can either keep it or I can upgrade to, Intact or something like that. It's like, maybe, can I extend another 2 years? Yeah, you could do that.
Don is like, this is the best comment I've ever seen. I've been waiting my whole life for this. This is great. Listen, we have 80%, I have to do math, 80% of attendees have stayed on past our 25. We got to update these schedules.
Can we go a full hour? We almost did. Oh my gosh.
It's a great topic.
I'm sorry, guys.
Let's continue the conversation. Ellis, you're available as a thought leader. You talk at a lot of CFMA and AGC conferences. Ellis at Briq.com.
Yep.
And you can reach me at Bassem at Briq.com.
Yeah,
great.
And if you're, we're in Future Tech in San Francisco in a couple weeks. We'll be at the CFMA National in Denver as well. So really, thanks everyone for joining today.
We should ask people, do they like this new studio?
Yeah, I think round of applause. Do we get, we keep doing this? Yeah, I think it works.
It felt a lot more like, I'm so tired of being a talking head.
I know. Like feels more natural a little bit, doesn't it?
Oh, perfect. We got some fan time. Thank you all.
Thanks everybody so much for the time today. Have a great week.
Have a great week.
Bye-bye.
Bye.